Welcome back.
To the Tiny Bookcase. I'm Ben.
And I am Nico. What you're about to hear is an interview.
A damn good one, too. Prepare to learn.
If you enjoy hearing this guest talk, be sure to check out last week's episode where you can hear their story.
Ours, too, if you're so inclined.
So, without further ado,
on with the show. We're only halfway through. In fact, we've got some some questions for you. We've already done
more
the stories.
stories!
Good
More
God.
stories.
So, this one, I like this one a lot, and it's fitting that it goes first because it's what's the first book do you remember reading?
On my own, or read to me, or read on tape. I mean, they're all different, really.
Your interpretation is fine, whichever way you want to take it.
I think the first story I really remember is so I was born in New York, and my parents were dirt poor when they moved there, and then I came along and they were dirter and poorer. So a lot of my early childhood books and stuff, like I was born in '89, so like early '90s, a lot of those kind of books weren't actually the books everyone else was reading. It was books from the '70s and '80s that my parents' neighbors' kids had grown out of and was donated to me. So my first book I really strongly remember reading was a book on tape retelling of The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh,
Great!
Wow.
Before I even knew what Star Wars or movies even was, I loved listening to this book on tape, and it had like sound effects of R2-D2's, like, you know, oh, and the whistles and everything, and it was atrocious. Like, it was so bad in hindsight because it assumed I had seen the movie or had watched the previous movie or knew it. Like, there was no. So a Jedi is this, by the way, kids. You know what I mean? But yeah, like, and it's kind of funny because it was one of those, like, you put in the cassette tape and then it goes, turn the page, and you turn the page and follow along. And all the illustrations in the book weren't illustrations; they were just stills taken from the movie. So it was a bizarre thing, but that's the earliest book I remember experiencing.
You read along with the tape.
Yeah, exactly that.
I don't think I've ever done that.
Sorry, I've been quietly laughing to myself over here. When you said that it assumed you'd seen the film, my mind was filled with this idea of a tape where, yeah, you remember the movie. Just, they do the sword fight. Just think about the sword fight, maybe 6-7 minutes. I'll be back.
Not quite, but it was more like Darth Vader and Luke start, like, I can't remember any of the words, but it was just like Darth Vader and Luke fought ferociously. Later, Luke spoke with Leia. Like, it's like, what? Wait, no, how? Like, it there's so many gaps. It was very bad. But yeah, no, books on tape. It was a big thing in the 90s ish, and well, actually, maybe not the 90s. Maybe it was the late 70s, late 70s, 80s, and early 90s. And it kind of died out, and it's kind of gone. So it was literally, think of like an audiobook that came with the text, and it would tell you when to turn the page. So it was great in a way for my parents because they didn't have to sit and read with me, and I was obsessed with books, still am. So it was great for them in the sense of, yeah, like, they did read to me and they loved reading to me and with me and all that kind of thing. But this was a really nice out for them when, no, Connor, I'm not reading this book for the 74th time in a row, just put the tape in, you know.
I remember Disney did a big run of them, didn't they?
They did.
In mid-80s, I think it was. So I ended up with loads of them because my cousins had them.
Well, actually, funny, I'm just after realizing I had Aladdin on tape. Like, the book, like, it was the Aladdin the movie, but it was the book and the tape. So there's one from the early 90s. But yeah,
in 92,
yeah.
Good grief!
Wild. I've never encountered this before.
Really, I still have all the tapes back
Crikey.
at my parents' house.
Wow.
Don't have the books. I must find a way to get the books.
I mean, it sounds very useful for getting kids to read and sort of automating that process a little bit. That's very cool. I can't believe I'm just when you sort of find weird gaps in your knowledge that feels like this for me.
You had this with Choose Your Own Adventure books as well, though, didn't you?
Yeah. No, I mean, but I knew what they were.
What? Oh, okay. That's okay.
I didn't, but I never read them as a kid.
Till now, check that out on Patreon. Good
Yeah,
God.
yeah. Yes, I also didn't get many books handed down. I don't have any elder siblings, so and my older cousins they were more prone to torturing animals than reading books. So
Well, I was growing up in Brooklyn and New York at those early years, so there weren't any animals around apart from rats.
bloody hell.
Can't torture a rat, it will get you back.
Yeah, I know, especially in New York, rat. Jeez.
You motherfucker, you. Right. Other than making R2D2 noises, Connor,
Yeah.
what is your secret talent that few people know about?
What is my secret talent? A few people know about. I'm not a very modest person, so I kind of think everyone knows about anything I'm good at. Podcasting? No, people know about that. Writing? People know about that. What's something I don't really talk about?
It can be completely and utterly useless, by the way. We've had tongues touching the ends of noses.
Oh,
People
that's
make
okay.
two
Okay.
noises at once.
I have an eerily good memory for inane, boring detail of things that happen in my life, if that makes sense. Like, I like I said earlier, I'm teaching 10 years, so I actually started college 13 years ago because it's a 3-year course. And I remember very clearly and distinctly the very first time I met someone who is now one of my nearest and dearest friends. And she insists that she didn't say this, but she did. She's a liar, and I remember these things very well. I lived in a dorm, and it was a mixed dorm. So like the males were on the bottom floor, and the women were on the second, third, and fourth floor. And there was just one big, massive common room as a sitting room, and that was it. That's all we had, and a tiny, tiny kitchen. And I remember the first night, we're all moving in, we're all starting college the next morning. Everyone's nervous as hell, and you can't sit in your room the whole time because what are you supposed to do? So gradually, people started creeping down to the common room, and I remember, like, I'm an outgoing guy, and I don't want to say I was confident, but I was confident in that situation at that age. So I walked into the room and I sat beside somebody. He's like, "Hello, I'm Connor." I was chatting away, and then 2 minutes later, this tiny, tiny woman from Monaghan, which is a county in the north of Ireland, bursts open. It was a double door. She opens both doors and she comes over to a big group and goes, "Well, I'm such and such. What makes you all tick?" And she refuses that really happened, but it did. And so I have weird memory for things like that. And I
Fascinating.
often get into arguments with people. I was like, "That didn't happen." I'm like, "Yes, it did."
You're gonna have to start recording your conversations so you can prove it to them if they're not believing you.
I won't lie, that thought has come across. There's these occasions where I'm like, I'm gonna remember this and no one else is, and maybe I should record it as proof, but then I don't, because that's a bit of an invasion of privacy.
It's sort of not cool. I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a wire right now.
Oh no! You what do you mean you've been recording this? What?
Oh, I like that. So, this one's a bit vague, but I like it for that reason, which is what's your favorite story? So, this doesn't have to be your favorite novel or movie or any piece of media like that, but it could also just mean, what's your favorite story arc or this kind of thing. What's your favorite story?
So I have two answers for this. One is I do have a really particular favorite type of story. My boyfriend often laughs at me because there are certain types of stories that when I finish watching the movie or reading the book, definitely always reading a book. When I finish watching a movie, reading a book, or a TV series or whatever, I'll get really down and depressed because I'll be like, "Oh man, that's over," and it's so good, like beyond what's normal, and I'm nearly jealous that the characters have this. So it's any stories that have this amazing sense of discovery and adventure, and like the Goonies would be a great example. The story where people get to experience something new and wild and amazing. So that kind of, I'm trying to think of other examples. The Uncharted video games would be another one I love. I just love that kind of, I don't want to say action adventure, but that's the genre they're putting in movies. But it's more like this sense of discovery and friends banding together and that kind of thing always gets me. So that'd be my favorite.
Accompanied by a depression afterwards, is it?
Always, because I'm always jealous that people have friends and have adventures and I don't.
Well, let's go on an adventure, man. Let's do this.
All right, yeah,
because we're friends now. There's no
I'll
way out.
I'll hop on the ferry and I'll meet you in Cardiff. No bother. Or no, Holyhead. It's Holyhead.
I really wouldn't go on an adventure with Nico. I've been on adventures with Nico. Things go wrong quickly.
But that's the adventure.
See, Connor gets it. You
I
didn't
get
book flights. Where are the passports? These aren't my problem, Ben. These are adventure problems.
Which actually, I'm changing my answer. My favorite story was going to be how I got my name, but I'm changing my favorite story to this. In the mid-80s, two inner city Dublin kids, they were like 9 and 10, hopped on the bus to Dublin Airport, snuck onto a flight, got to London Heathrow, snuck on another flight, and got to New York.
Was this your parents?
No, it wasn't. They weren't children in the 80s. Ben, pay attention.
Sorry.
And then the only way that they were caught, like this is a 9 and 10-year-old, two lads. The only way they were caught is they went up to a cop in New York. What was it? It was JFK Airport, and asked one of the cops, "How do you get into town?" And which I don't know why Dublin's the biggest city on the island of Ireland. Everyone calls the city centre of every city in Ireland town. So even though I live in the city, if I'm going into the city centre, I'll say to my partner, "Oh, I'm heading into town." Like it's a very Irish thing. So that twigged. So there's my actual favorite story that really happened. I'll find a link and send you it to the actual news because it's hilarious.
I'd say it's actually a British thing. I know that I've lived in the south and the north of England, and in both places they say I'm going into town,
and that's the city centre.
And that's the city centre. Yeah, I wonder if it's a British thing, possibly. Yeah,
where I live, everyone says I'm going uptown, or where I'm from, rather. Going uptown.
Uptown.
Do you know Billy Joel personally, or is that?
Well, no, but I've met many of his girls.
Hey,
way! Right. Oh, what is this episode already? There are no rails. This is the train from Back to the Future 3 now.
This is what happens when you get a podcaster on as a guest.
No, Stu was very well behaved. If you're listening, Stu. Right, Connor.
Nico.
Can you think? Yes. Can you think of a book that didn't work for you at all, and why didn't it?
Yes. My very. I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna say a book that's published and a book that isn't. My very first book to write didn't work for me at all, and that's why I never published it. It was a YA. It was about werewolves, and it was about being gay. And I think it's something I'll definitely revisit and come back to. But the way I had written it, I was like, this is shite. Jesus, I'm not letting anyone see this ever again. So what did I go and do? I printed out the manuscript and then I deleted it from my computer. So the only manuscript I have is a physical one, which was really stupid in hindsight. But I'll get back to it someday.
I think I like that though. We've heard other authors before say that they've deleted whole swathes, 50 to 100,000 words of a novel, and then it's gone. But this idea of having a physical copy means that in order to continue that, you have to edit it, because there's no way you'd just be able to type that up if you weren't happy with it at the time.
Well, that's actually how I edited my my published novel, The Longest Night, available on Amazon. That's actually how I edited it. That's always hard to say. I printed it out, made edits on the page, because there's something about red pen. I don't know, it's the teacher in me. And then I had the manuscript in front of me and I retyped. So even on the chapters that were good, and I didn't have to edit, I retyped them completely because it made me analyze it again. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it as an editing technique, but hey, it worked for me.
I did that with all of my academic essays at university. I would write them out longhand and then type them up, and that was the editing process. Just with this red pen thing, you've just reminded me. I took a creative writing module at university again. Lovely. And it was really fantastic because I met a bunch of people, including a previous guest of ours on the Tiny Bookcase, Ben Langley. Okay. Through that, but what part of the process was to swap stories with somebody else, and they would sort of read it and annotate it perhaps and give you feedback, and it was a really nice workshopping environment. and the mature student that got my story,
Mhm.
she loved it. At least she thought it was okay, and she liked bits of it and all the rest of it. But the way that she'd chosen, I think she must have been a teacher,
Okay.
because she annotated it in red pen, and she gave paragraphs that she liked a tick, and paragraphs that she did the paragraphs that she really liked 2 ticks, and like underlined stuff in red and all the rest of it. And I got it, and I was like, even though it was fairly positive feedback, I was immediately incensed, just immediately.
Oh,
You
that's how I edit my friends' stories.
Oh no! You please tell me you don't tick them.
No, I do.
Oh no! No, you've got to stop.
I will steal for you and send you Ben's manuscript when it's done, Connor.
Oh
Please
my
mark it.
god!
Please fucking. I
With
wish I hadn't said this
joy.
on podcast, but I'm going to get
Now,
you to mark it and I'm going to give it
because
back.
here's the thing, you're going to have to follow through now. That's
Oh,
the thing.
yeah.
You said so. There you go. Postage between the UK and Ireland isn't that much. It's fine. It's fine. So yeah, no. Here's the thing. I'm in a writers group, and pre-COVID, we email. So like we meet once a month. So we meet on the second Monday of the month, and on the first Monday, you email around your piece to everybody, and then everyone prints it out at home, annotates it, and then you get like 6 or 7 different versions, depending on how many people are at the meeting, of your piece. So it's really great to see so many different viewpoints. But yeah, I do that. I get a pen, I take a paragraph when I think, yeah, that's really good. I underline the things that are like every mark I make is positive. But now I'm starting to think of the color of the pen. Yeah.
Maybe change the color of the pen. I don't know. I think it was the color of the pen and the ticks that got me. I think for me, it uncomfortably brought back school.
Oh
And I
god.
was thinking, this, because especially from a peer. But oh, I remember. I remember it so clearly. I hadn't thought about that for a very long time. So thanks.
There you were, Ben.
Get ready to relive it when I send you a new manuscript with lots of red pen all
Oh,
over
I
it.
can't wait. Just imagining you. Look at me. I'm 18. I am a man. How dare you tick my work? I'm a fully grown adult.
I wasn't. Yeah, I'm not much less of a prick now, but I certainly was particularly awful at that point.
That's the foundation of our friendship, Ben, and I stand by it.
Wandering around in a black leather jacket, thinking I'm a man.
Please ask a question.
So when you actually come to writing your stories, so with the short story that you've gone for here, and also with your longer form stuff, so we spoke about your editing process, and we have also spoken about how you never start with the start and instead go back and insert it.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that is specifically your writing process? Like, do you have a particular method of dealing with writer's block, or
I do and I don't. So with writer's block, I don't allow it to happen because I plan extensively when it's long form. Short form, so something like this, a short story, your pantser. I prefer discovery writer. I think it's a bit more fun. I don't know. I feel like it lends it more credibility because sometimes I think when people say write by this or pantser, I think some writers, not this one and not the other, your 2 hosts, kind listeners, I think some people look down on that, which I plan, and I really plan. If anyone's interested in hearing me go on really in depth, I really talk about how I plan a book in. I did a solo show where I interviewed myself on my podcast because it was the year anniversary of the show, so I was like, I'll do something different. So I kind of talked about me and my story. But basically, what I do is I just I think of it like zooming in. So I'll write a paragraph that's 5 sentences that tells the entire story. And then for each sentence in that paragraph, I expand that one sentence into another 5-sentence paragraph. And then I zoom in and I zoom in. So, I have lots of layers of telling the story. And then eventually I get to a point where I have a spreadsheet and I have character arcs and I have this and that and the other. So I plan, I probably over plan, but then it's really easy because I spend more time planning than I do writing. Because then once I've planned, it's like, well, I don't have to think about what happens next because I know, because I've said what happens next. So it's just tick, 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 and off I go writing.
It sounds fairly flawless in at least the way that for yourself,
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's flawless. I mean, there's definitely issues, and there's occasionally sometimes there'll be a huge gaping plot hole that's willing to suck everything I wrote down a dark hole of despair, but That's fairly rare.
But other than that, it's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, we love it. We love a dark hole of despair. That should be our new tagline. The tiny bookcase, a dark hole of despair.
Brought to you by Nico and Ben.
Oh, dearie me. So, apply this one to podcasting and writing if you like, or don't if you don't like. Have you ever come across any adversity in pursuing your chosen career?
Huh. I don't think I have, but I think that's because I'm playing it very safe and I'm not banking my life on this yet.
Yeah.
It is something I would like I would love to do this full podcasting and writing full time. But you know, you got to pay them bills, don't you? So it's
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things. And I do recall a lot of it kind of inner adversity, like inner conflict over it.
Yeah.
Just in terms of, do I have the time for this? And if I'm doing a podcast, like, what am I losing out on? And all that kind of thing. And I think the pandemic and the lockdown and all that kind of helped in that regard because, well, I'm not going to do anything else. But it's my big thing with that is always to try and balance it. I've never had adversity from outside myself, but inside myself, it's always like, as long as I'm happy doing something, I'll keep doing it. Because it's the key, right?
It's no truer than in any creative pursuit that you are your own worst enemy.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it doesn't matter how many people say, do you know what, I loved that. If one person says, well, it was a bit crap, that's the one. That's the one you will remember for the rest of your days.
Oh, I can quote the only 1-star review I've got from my for my book ever, and it's honestly the first time I read it, I just died laughing. I thought it was so funny because it was so angry at me for writing a book. It was like, how dare this author have the hubris to say it's based on Irish mythology? And I was like, I grew up beside Stone Age ruins. I think I know what I'm on about.
Not to be a dick, but please do quote that entire review.
Oh, I will read it. Don't you worry, my friends. Hang on, let me pull it up here. Nico, edit in some nice loading music or something while I get this.
It's like, who's going to sue for a soft version of the girl from Ipanema?
But now you've named it, so you know you've ruined it. Oh, hey, I got a new review since I looked. I'll look at that later. Let's see.
It's us. We're writing them as we go. 1 star. Let's go, Ben. Let's go.
We're just trying to give you something to read out.
Okay. So it's written by Susan Ye, which is spelled Y-E-A, and the only reason I'm saying this is because it's on the public domain. Do not at her. And also I think her name should be Susan Nay because she doesn't like fun. Anyway. Title: Dreadful, Dreadful, Dreadful. Which on a side note, can I just point out, if you have to use this one adjective 3 times, you're not using a strong enough adjective, Susan. So the association with Irish myth caught my interest. Thanks. But in all honesty, this book is an insult to the Irish treasure house of ancient stories and artifacts. I'm shocked that the author has the hubris to publish this mishmash of bad grammar, bad punctuation, poor construction, poor editing, though at times it was hard to work out which was which. The dialogue was dire. The plot might have worked if the author had developed any writing skills before publishing. How other readers can have provided 5-star reviews beats all comprehension. The cover is the best thing about this book. Now, here's the thing. Susan's right. The cover is amazing. But everywhere else, she's picking up her own hole.
Have you taken the time to have a look at Susan's other reviews? Because I'd love to know what she's 5-starring.
I haven't actually, and let's find out. Let's go on this journey together.
I mean, Susan, I hope you're listening, girl, because we're going on a wild ride.
Susan, I would love to have you on my show. Let's be friends.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Come on ours instead.
Okay, so yeah, let's make it. We'll make it a crossover event. Okay, so she's had 9. Jesus, she's wild. 94 reviews, 52 helpful votes.
Okay.
Let's see. No, but I'm not going to name books that she's. To be fair to those authors, I'm not going to name books unless they're big names, and a 1-star review won't hurt them.
Does it have a star breakdown that she averages?
No, it kind of goes. Let's see. Lots of indie authors, from what I can tell.
So just going around trashing indie authors.
I will also say I don't think I see. Oh wait, here's a 5-star one. The Sam Ireland thriller series, book 1 to 3. She gave that 5 stars. Must check you out, Sam. Everything else though, there's nothing like. Yeah, she's quite negative. Everything is 1 or 3 stars. No in betweens.
When we find out that Susan is the professor for Celtic mythology at a university somewhere, isn't it?
Just getting totally up themselves about something.
Yeah, this isn't by the text.
It's like, well, that's why it's called fiction, love. Anyway,
I love that.
As you can tell,
taking that on the chin.
yeah, like it was so funny because she reviewed it like around Christmas, and I was at home, and I was like, huh, and my dad was in the room, he was like, what? And I said, well, this just happened, and he was incensed. He was so angry. He was like, how? Well, how dare she? Ask her what books she's read. And I was like, no.
It's the internet. You don't.
Yeah, like, yeah, that's not how you do things. That's not how you do things. But no, it's like you have to take those things on the chin. And the thing is, the book does have plenty of 5-star reviews. So I'm very happy.
Take solace as I did with my music that you haven't made it on the internet until you're getting hate.
Exactly. That's exactly what I said to my dad. I was like, no, this is a good thing. There. Yeah. And as well, it really legitimizes the 5-star reviews, I think, when you get a 1-star review, because like everyone's done it. Listeners, you've done it. Ben, Nico, you've done it too. You find out about a book, you look at it, you see it has full 5 stars on Amazon or wherever you buy your books online, and then you scroll down and look at the reviews and you're like, oh, it only has 5-star reviews and only has 10 of them. That's a wee bit sus. And then you see another book has 11 reviews with a 4.9 average, and that one you trust a bit more, don't you?
Yeah, I can see the psychology there.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm buying a product, I always try and read the 3-star reviews because they'll be the most balanced. I feel like they're not going to be people who are there just to big it up or just to slag it off. They're the people who say what is actually good and bad about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Although, never look up reviews for airlines because they're always 1 star because only people who had a bad time can be bothered to review a flight.
That's so true, isn't it?
Obviously, if they had a really bad time, then they won't be doing the review.
I'm really tempted the next time I have a flight, in 2073, I'm going to be like, 5 stars, didn't die.
Yeah.
Left before engines, ladder before engines. That's a total win for me.
Both wings remained on for the entire duration.
Was not stabbed by flight staff. 10 out of 10.
Oh, God.
So, if you could pick one genre of fiction to keep, and you're going to absolutely punt all the others away from yourself forever.
No.
Which would you choose and why?
I choose violence. No, let me think.
George Martin, chosen.
No, I take it back. See, here's the thing. I'm a multi-genre writer. So that's really difficult, and a very vastly multi-genre reader. Like, I've read books about growing vegetables, and then I've read Halo Scott's books straight after, and you've had Halo on before, and her books are dark and bloody and scary and wonderful.
We had a phenomenal time with Halo. It was so fun recording with her.
So one person be so lovely and cheerful and yet also filled with the darkest books.
When I had her on my show, my first question is usually, "Hi, how are you?" But my first question for her was, "What's wrong with you?" To answer your question though, Ben, to be fair, I don't know. I'm trying to think what genre I could live with, because I'm kind of thinking more along the lines of, it's less what genre would I get rid of, and more like what genre can satisfy me forever. I think memoir. I think memoir, because it's real and because there's so many variety of memoir. I would be sad to lose fantasy and all that kind of thing, but I've just really gotten into the amazing stories that real people have lived, especially through, like I was saying earlier about my podcast, people have survived crazy things. And then even people who haven't had crazy stories have crazy emotional stories. So memoir, but I'm really going to miss everything else.
I mean, all the way back in episode 1, I said to Ben, one of my favorite books I'd ever read was Nick Frost's memoir. Truths, Half-Truths and Little White Lies. I cannot recommend it highly enough. just because that man has had an interesting life that you would not expect.
Yeah.
When he's just the funny man. What does films with Simon Pegg?
What does films? That's such a British way to say it. The funny man, what does?
I absolutely love saying things incorrectly in that fashion, mostly because I know it upsets people. I never say, if someone says, "Oh, can you hand me a pen?" I'll say, "Yeah, what flavour do you want?" Not what colour. It's always flavour. Just because I know it will mostly mostly upset Ben.
I just don't like it when you choose my pens, listeners. Like, what?
Living in
That
a
reminds
digital world, Ben.
Yes. It reminds me of a lot of Irishisms. A lot of Irishisms are very conflicting, and it's funny because I have a new coworker in school who is not even from Europe, and she's from New Zealand, and I'm learning a lot about my culture and my language and turns of phrase through her going, "Wait, what?" Like someone was telling me a funny story, and I was like, "Ah, come here, go away." Which doesn't mean anything. Like, come here, go away. But it's just like, that's brilliant. Keep going, keep telling me the story. So yeah, I love weird phrases.
Yeah, but I see the New Zealand or Australia who don't say boil the kettle. They say something like boil the jug. So everyone's got weird stuff going on.
Yeah. Oh yeah, everyone does. But it's just funny to be like, oh really? That's weird. Oh, I thought that was perfectly normal. Oh, okay. That's the bit I'm enjoying.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you might have just answered it. But what's a quote you live by?
Ah, come here, go away. I actually so let's go deep and meaningful, listeners. So my how do I start this? I myself and my partner, we had a big scare a couple of years ago in terms of life and all that kind of thing, and it really made the two of us analyze um our I don't want to say our future as in a couple, but like the future. So in terms of what do you want? What do I want? What do we want as a couple? Blah blah blah. And I really wanted to be an author, and I kept saying, "Well, when I'm an author, when I'm an author, when I'm an author." And the quote I live by is what he said to me, which was, "Connor, you always say when I'm an author, but you never feckin' write." And I was like, "Oh shit, he's right." And I hate it when my partner's right. So that's the quote I live by. It's like you can't be the thing you want to be without putting in the work. Essentially, you always say you want to be an author, but you never write. That's always going on in my head.
I really genuinely love that.
Mm.
That's it's just savage in the right way.
Yeah, it was the way I like to say it is it was the kick up the arse I needed. Because it was just like cop on. Like you can't want something and not chase it. Well, you can, but you can't be moaning when you don't get it if you're not making
Yeah.
a step towards it. Like,
Reminds me of a phrase my dad always uses, and it's about if you, in a way, a lot of people would say if something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. My dad always says, and I quote, "Fuck it, you can't get a little bit pregnant," which I think is just an absolute masterclass in. Well, you're doing it, might as well go all in.
oh, that's brilliant. That's very, very good.
I like it as well. I think the this idea that you've got to just pull yourself up and get on with what you want to do if you want to live your life.
Yeah.
The way that you think you want to be living your life is fine, and it should almost be something that happens to everybody at around 21 or something like that, where you just get a real shock, a real clear reminder that your time is limited.
Yeah. Yeah. I always call it the oh yeah moment. So it's like when someone says something, you're like, oh yeah, like this. Oh feck, that's it, isn't it? That's the
Yeah.
issue with me at the minute, or whatever it may or may not be. But yeah, everyone needs that moment so that they can readjust and do what actually matters to them. Because otherwise, the later you have that, the more annoyed you're going to be at the time you have wasted not doing the thing that makes you happy.
I don't know what you mean.
I think that's an excellent bit of wisdom that I think everyone can apply. So
Yeah,
nice
which doesn't come from me, it comes from my partner. It's the only thing I'll credit him with. Everything else, he's a pain in the arse. Love him very much, but can't stand him. Like all good relationships.
So, where should people read your work or start the podcast? Like, should they start from the start of the podcast, or is there a particular episode that's a good entry point for them?
I mean, where should? So, what you should do is after you've listened to all episodes of The Tiny Bookcase and reviewed them all 5 stars, you should listen to every single episode of mine so my download numbers go up so I can get sponsors. But if you really want to, no, I'm not being that guy. No, the podcast is designed such a way that you can jump in at any stage. I tried to title the episodes in a way that really gives the listener a chance to be like, what am I in the mood for? Oh, this looks cool. Tap, listen. So I would say start anywhere that really tickles your fancy. So if you want to listen to Story of a Storyteller, it's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, it's on anywhere where you can find good podcasts. So just search Story of a Storyteller or search my name, Conor Bredin. It'll come up. It will always list the latest episode first, but that is not necessarily where you can start. You can start anywhere you like. I think I was saying to you guys earlier, I've like nearly 40 episodes aired, and I've nearly 50 recorded, so we're getting there, lads. It's something I'm really proud of. I started it as a way to kind of do content marketing and to tell people about my books, which I'll come to. But it kind of has become its own thing now. And I'm not saying I'm giving up on writing or anything, but I'm just saying I would have considered myself a writer who has a podcast. Now I consider myself a podcaster and writer. You know, like I'm kind of equating the two because, I mean, you guys know it takes a lot of work. You have to find guests, you have to vet guests. Then when you get going and when the podcast starts getting legs, people start asking to be guests and you have to research them as well. And you have to come up with questions. Like there's a lot of work in it. And that's just before the recording. So yeah, it's something that I'm kind of looking at and going, hey, that's a mountain of work I'm proud of. So Story of a Storyteller, excellent thing. Listen to it, please, please. But I also have a book, The Longest Night, a supernatural thriller. So I have kind of 2 companion documents that go with it. So I have if you're interested, I have The Longest Journey, which is essentially a 9-page story of how I wrote the book, including like I have photographs of my extensive plan of post-it notes on the spare bedroom wall, and I have pictures of the locations. So all the locations in the book are real Stone Age ruins all across Ireland, and I visited them all and took photos and all that kind of thing. So on the front cover, if you take a look at it, guys, there is a very small image of Newgrange, which is a 5,500-year-old structure, older than your Stonehenge, yeah, Ben and Nico, and older than all the pyramids in Egypt. And it 3 mornings a year, the sun shines directly in a tiny little box in the above the doorway and goes all the way in and illuminates the chamber inside. And other than that, no sunlight ever gets through to it. And also it's completely watertight. The ground in the inside chamber has never had rainwater in 5,500 years. So it's an amazing feat of engineering. So I have pictures of my trip to that in it and everything. So that's The Longest Journey, which you can download on my website, www.conorbredin.com. And then I also have The Stolen Dagger, which is a completely free novella, which is a side quill, essentially, of The Longest Night. It's not a prequel, it's not a sequel. It happens concurrently with the novel, answers some questions that the novel doesn't, but not like when readers don't realize when they're reading the novel that these questions are there until they read The Stolen Dagger and like, oh, now that makes more sense. And as well as that, Stolen Dagger does not end on a cliffhanger. It has a complete beginning, middle, and end. So if you want, you can go to my website and go to www.conorbredin.com/freebook and then download it. And if you like it, then go buy The Longest Night.
Top notch.
Really
Excellent.
amazing.
I love a good plug, and that was really engaging.
That's professional.
It sounds so good. The that companion piece.
The Longest Journey, yeah. It's just because I know some people come to me because they're writers and want to know more that way. So that's there as well. So it's good. It's fun. Thank you.
Great idea. And so aside from getting your work and listening to your podcast, where can they find you on social media to follow you and keep up to date with you?
Yeah, sure. So the podcast is on Instagram and on Twitter. Both are at Storytell Pod. And then I am at Conor the Geek. on Instagram and on TikTok and on all of the things. The only place I'm a bit different is Twitter, where it's still kind of the geek, but there's underscores because, not a word of a lie, my actual childhood bully is kind of the geek with no underscores on Twitter, and he doesn't use it. But I want that username, and someday I'll get it. And his name is Connor as well, so that's not nice. Anyway, Connor underscore the underscore geek.
Wow.
That's me.
That was a journey. The longest journey, in fact.
Stop. Listen, I'm here for the emotional roller coasters, not for the fun.
Well, that's a shame because you have been fun.
You have been very fun. Great answers. It's been really interesting.
I'm only all right. Thank you very much for having me on, guys. I absolutely love your show, and it's really nice to get to know ye like in a way that you don't just by listening. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They never hear the bits I've edited out or the horrible stuff we all said. Oh, I can't believe we said Miss Sweeney, Miss Sweeney, Miss Sweeney.
God, if she hears that.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend. If you like this episode, link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful. You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram at BookcaseTiny for updates. Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For magnificent beardery, let's cast the Chinicus folliculale spell on Gary Laird. For rich ginger tones on the scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne. And for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?